And we are live for the latest edition of Nick Valencia Live. Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday, November 20th, 2025. This is Nick Valencia Live. We were on earlier today. We're trying something out new. Some of you guys may have already seen us live on Substack earlier today. We went live with our friend over in Washington, D.C. at the Migrant Insider, Pablo Manriquez, and we're going to be doing a lot more collaborations with Pablo. The live ended up being pretty good. You know, I love these graphics. I love the StreamYard and how professional it looks. We went back to Substack the old way. It was just him and I on there. And we had a pretty sizable crowd on there. So if you guys are joining from there, coming on here for round two of us talking to folks and interviewing people about what's going on the streets of America. We've got a great show lined up for you today. Somebody who we have been trying to get on the show for several weeks now, Julissa Arce, author, activist, all-around badass woman. She joins us in just a couple of minutes. But we want to start here in Atlanta, where there is a rumor spreading, and we don't quite know where it started, but it has a lot of people here on edge. In fact, just a few minutes before we started this broadcast, my wife came and showed me a message that's going around on the community groups here in Atlanta, specifically in the area around where we live, where people are on edge because of a rumor that Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents are here in the city, and that a major operation is going to be hitting Atlanta today and tomorrow. So in full disclosure, we don't know where this information has originated, but we know that it has spread like wildfire, and it is part of what we are seeing fear spreading across the country with these brutal takedowns on the hands of federal agents to individuals on the streets of America, in some cases who have done nothing wrong other than just be working class American citizens with brown skin. We showed you that video out of Raleigh, North Carolina, where a young man was taken into custody, taken from the streets, taken several miles away from where he was originally detained, only to be verified as an American citizen. And then he started rolling with his camera. And it appeared as though at the start of that video that one of those suspected federal agents was going to strike the individual, but realized he was being recorded, so then he stopped. But what we did see on that video was those agents toss his wallet on the ground so he could pick it up. You know, it may not seem like much to you, but to me, it was just so disrespectful and disgusting. And it clearly is a microcosm of how these suspected federal agents are acting when the cameras are not on. I mean, if they're willing to do that when a cell phone camera is rolling, what are they doing when no one is watching? That's the big question that we have. And we talk about that fear really infesting its way and infiltrating its way into different cities. Border Patrol says that their operation is over in Charlotte. We are calling bullshit. We know that federal agents stick around in a city even if their operation is over. Mainstream media outlets reporting that the Border Patrol operation has wrapped up and closed its doors. That is not true. We know that because in Los Angeles, they never left. There are still raids. In Chicago, they never left. There are still raids. And in Charlotte, I guarantee you, they are not all gone. And we will continue to see raids moving forward in the days and perhaps even hours ahead. That's a big deal here because we're hearing the official message from the government that they have moved on. While we know the ground reports, those eyewitnesses on the ground that we continue to stay in touch with, they tell us otherwise. If ICE moves on, if Border Patrol moves on, why are we continuing to see aggressive acts on the streets of Chicago and places like Little Village? Why are we continuing to see car washes being raided in Los Angeles? And I guarantee you, we're still going to see that fear in schools in the Charlotte area tomorrow. One of the most heartbreaking videos that I saw was posted by one of those activists out there, the woke farmer, someone who says that he would like to be on a farm. He would like to be dedicating his love to agriculture, but instead he's out on the streets because of the economy. He's out in the streets because of the policies of President Trump 2.0. And he was one of several people out in front of a Charlotte area elementary school protecting the kids from fear of Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents targeting them. We also saw a video posted by Felicia Sampanato from the Sidewalk School, which appeared to show parents, loved ones, evacuating kids out of the back of a school bus because they feared, and they had a report that ICE was showing up to take them. And that fear now has found its way into Atlanta, where there are reports and suspicions that ICE is here, but we have yet to verify that. Late last night, though, in this area where I live, Black Hawk helicopters continually flying over our area. why? This is so abnormal, and it's just only feeding into the paranoia and fear that the community has here. We want to get right into our conversation with our next guest, somebody who has been front and center and really a strong voice for the undocumented community, somebody who has a prolific story themselves. Julissa Arce is a writer, activist, and all around badass. Julissa, thank you so much for taking the time with Nick Valencia Live. Really appreciate you joining the show. We've been wanting to have you here for several weeks.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and thank you for everything that you're doing and all of the information that you're bringing to the community.
Oh, God bless you, Julissa. We really feel like there's a moment to meet, and we're trying to meet the moment. And you have made that sort of a mission in your life to try to step up and meet the moment. I don't want to give away a lot of what your story is, but for me, I know that you came here to this country before you were a teenager, and then somehow, as an undocumented immigrant to this country, were able to rise to the level of vice president at Goldman Sachs. Tell us about your story. Some people don't know who you are.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, you're right. I came to the US when I was 11 years old from Mexico. And when I was 14, the visa that I used to come to the US expired. And that's when I became undocumented and remained undocumented for the next decade. And I think one of the things that a lot of people get wrong is sort of asking this question of why didn't you apply sooner? Why didn't you become a resident and a citizen sooner? And the very kind of straightforward answer to that is that there was no way for me to become documented, right? There is no way for the vast majority of people who are undocumented in this country to become documented. That's what immigration reform would do. It would create a line and a process for people to become legalized. And as you've mentioned before, and others have mentioned before, what's happening right now is that those legal avenues that exist are being taken away, right? Like I remember the way that I became a resident and a citizen is because my ex-husband is a US citizen. And so I was able to apply through him. And I'm seeing all of these stories now of couples going to their green card interview, which is a legal process to follow, and the spouse being taken into another room and being detained and being deported in some cases. And I cannot imagine someone who went through that process going into the federal courthouse in New York City at 26 Federal Plaza with the fear that this interview might lead to my deportation when I am trying to finally, now that there is an avenue for me to become legalized, to do so. And you asked this question of like, how did you become a vice president at Goldman Sachs while I was undocumented? I use fake papers to work there, right?
Wow.
I used a fake green card and a fake social security card, and I used to have so much shame around having done that. But the truth is that even for people who would say, "Oh, she was breaking the law," like, yeah, but you know what? The law was also breaking me, and it was breaking my family apart. And that's what's happening right now. The laws of this country are breaking people apart, and it's the laws that need to change. And even before we get to the part of like the laws need to change, the laws need to be followed, and the people who aren't following the laws are ICE agents. It's
Right?
DHS. It's the very precedent of this country, and so um, that's my story,
Yeah.
and I'd rather talk about other things though. Much more
Well,
important things than like my personal story nowadays.
you're speaking up. I wanted to start with just giving context to people, to
Yeah.
people to who you are. And you talk about this one story that you flagged to us and that took off. It went viral. The story of Barbara and Tucker May. Barbara and Tucker May, newlyweds. They had been going through the process. They had been talking to federal immigration services since April, and they go into their green card interview, their spousal green card interview. And Tucker came on the show and told us that basically his wife was lured away. They told her that she needed to get a copy of her passport. They separated her from legal counsel and her husband. And the next thing they knew, she was in custody, in immigration custody, and then transferred around and ripped around. I mean, these are the kinds of things that are happening, Julissa, to people that are moving in good faith. It's got to be so frustrating when you see online the comments, or you see people who are just sort of painting this in black and white, that like these are criminals and lawbreakers and ICE is justified in what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's just that everything that you're saying about these tactics that not just ICE, right? Because this stuff that's happening
Right.
at during interviews is being done by like UICIS, right?
Yeah.
And
It's better to probably blanket term it DHS because they get
right,
all ticky-tack, right? I mean,
right,
it's all of these agencies are under the Department of Homeland Security.
exactly.
And whether or not you're reaching out to Border Patrol, ICE, HS, what is it? God,
USCIS.
USCIS or HSI. That's the one that
Yeah.
was, it's like this patchwork of authority that they expect you to not to know who they are, but they're all under the DHS
Yeah,
umbrella.
exactly.
Right.
They're under DHS. And yeah, when I send you that story, it's because I sort of like I had anxiety looking at this story of this couple going into their green card interview because, as I mentioned, like I went through that process, right? And you show up to this interview, by the way, after months of paperwork, after months of, of sort of talking to lawyers and going through
Yeah.
fingerprints, and you don't get to the part of having this interview until you've already been completely fully vetted, right? The interview in some ways is sort of like the last step in the process before you get your green card when you're going through this process. And so you never go into this green card interview with your spouse, with your lawyer, ever thinking it's going to end up in you becoming detained, right?
I mean, they're
Because
just straight up lying to people then and
they are. And
luring them to take them into
yeah,
custody.
they're using this just like horrible tactics. And to back to sort of back take a step back.
Yeah.
One of the biggest reasons that they're doing all of these things is because they have these unreasonable made up quotas that they need to meet in order to show in order to show Trump supporters that like, hey, we're doing what we said we were going to do in terms of like deporting millions of people. And the reason that they're doing this, let's just be very clear, is because they have nothing else to offer their base, right? When
Mm,
you're seeing at how bad the economy is doing right now for
it's
everyday
awful.
working Americans, the fact that like inflation continues to be out of control, the average American family is spending $1,000 on groceries every single month, and the White House and the Trump administration have no answers for that. And so the only thing they have to offer people is here are the immigrants that we said we were going to deport. That is the only answer. They're using immigrants as a scapegoat, which historically this country has always used immigrants as a scapegoat, whether it's for economic downturns or anything else going on in the country. And I just really wish that people would open their eyes and see that they're being lied to.
It's this idea of otherism, and he thinks like giving out a couple $1,000s from tariff money, allegedly, that's what he says he's going to do, is going to fix it. I mean, people still talk about the stimulus checks. I had a guest conversation earlier today. The short-term memory in politics, they're using that to their advantage. It is such a short-term memory. I mean, in sports, I remember the first hockey game I went to, and like the penalties and the score. People can't even remember the first Trump administration so much that they voted for him again
Again.
or thought that that was the remedy. They fell for this transgender reassignment surgery stuff, that they're going to do transgender reassignment surgeries in migrant detention camps, or that all your kids are going to be wokeified and all of a sudden they're going to be coming home a different gender because of the stuff that they're being taught in schools. It's just not true. It is meant to divide. It is meant to misinform, and it's meant to go after people who are looking at these broad strokes headlines and falling for it. They fall for this rhetoric, and I don't know if we should be mad at them or impressed at this manipulation of the media by the Trump administration.
Yeah, I mean, I think I will nothing Trump will ever do will like impress me. Um
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, I am shocked by so many of the things that he does and gets away with. Shocked I am, impressed like and never. Um but I think it's a combination of those things. I mean, it is a combination of, the media has a large hand in creating narratives
Yep.
um that can either misinform or not. There's like the traditional media and what it pushes, and there's also a lot of misinformation happening on places like YouTube, right, where anybody can who has a little mic can come on and say whatever. And and it can go viral, and it can be full of lies, and it can be
Yep.
full of misinformation. And so I also think that companies, social media companies, have a responsibility to monitor that, and
But
to
they're not taking that responsibility
not only are
seriously,
they not
Julissa.
taking
They're
their
saying, hey,
responsibility.
we want these parallel realities. We want these
Yes,
videos that are fake. We're going to give you and monetize and incentivize you putting out fake stuff.
exactly. So not only are they not uh doing anything about it, they're backtracking from any sort of efforts that they had in the past, right? We saw that happening with Meta,
Yeah.
for example, right? Like,
Yeah.
they fired all of the people who were supposed to um who were supposed to weed out misinformation and complete lies from some of their videos. And they're sort of like washing their hands clean and saying, like, we have nothing to do with this, right? Like, this is user generated content. But they do have a responsibility. There's no way around saying that they do.
Yeah, I'm so glad you bring this up because we feel, not surprisingly, that the antidote to this is independent journalism. It's putting out videos, it's creating a record in the short term so that in the future, when the power changes hands, these individuals will be held accountable. I want to show you a video that you made about Home Depot. And Home Depot
Mm.
has, talking about a lack of responsibility and accountability. We have seen so many of these sweeps happen at these facilities. And Home Depot, calladito. They haven't said anything at all. Let's show this report that you put out.
ICE has used Home Depot parking lots across the country as a main stage for immigration raids, and the company has done nothing to protect its customers. In June, heavily armed agents showed up in unmarked white vans at a Home Depot in Hollywood, Los Angeles, detaining 20 people, mostly Latina street vendors, day laborers, and even U.S. citizens making deliveries. In August, at the Westlake Home Depot, ICE agents jumped out of a rented Penske truck and detained 16 more people, with a Fox News camera crew on site like it was a reality TV spectacle. That was the fourth raid at that location since June. In another incident, 52-year-old Carlos Montoya lost his life after fleeing ICE. He was struck by a vehicle on the freeway. Between June and August, community members documented over 50 raids at Home Depot stores, according to Human Rights Watch. And in November, a U.S. citizen was detained at a Home Depot in Cypress Park, while masked agents drove off his car with his 1-year-old baby still in the car seat. Home Depot wants to wash his hands clean of these horrors, claiming it isn't notified in advance and is just simply following federal rules. But most store parking lots are private property. If I park there for too long, I get towed. Home Depot should deny access to agents without a court-issued warrant. Immigrant rights groups have called on Home Depot to publicly denounce these raids and deny ICE access without a warrant. But Home Depot has so far refused to do so. If Home Depot won't protect our community, even as they profit from our business, then we have to act because we have the power of accountability. As customers, we have choices. So let's take our dollars where they are valued. For more videos like this, follow me and follow Aquí, the accountability movement, to stay informed and fight back.
It really is about accountability. That was so powerful. And we want to show our viewers one of those raids. We have video from back in September, one of the clips that we posted that went viral of federal agents going into a Home Depot to conduct their operations. To see that, he's on the hunt. You could see him just sort of going through the aisles there looking for anyone. That's not a targeted enforcement operation. That's like, let me see somebody who looks working class, who looks old, whose body is used up, that I can go easily capture and take into my custody. The question I have for you, Julissa, is this is a private company. It's headquartered here in Atlanta. They have allowed these day laborers to grow in their parking lots for decades, years and years. We know if you want to go get a day laborer, you go to Home Depot. What responsibility do they have, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, they are, they are a private company, which means, as I mentioned in the video, like a lot of their parking lots are private property, right? Like they do have the ability to create policies that say, hey, if if ICE cannot produce a court issued warrant that is signed by a judge, they cannot enter our stores. They absolutely have the responsibility to do that, to protect their customers, to protect their employees,
I agree.
because they benefit from our business and they benefit from our dollars, and I will say that like Home Depot has never been like this welcoming place for day laborers. Like, yes, day laborers will go to Home Depot because contractors will come to Home Depot looking for their labor, looking for their help to fill um, construction job shortages. If it
Yeah.
wasn't for day laborers, much of the construction industry in this country would suffer. And Home Depot is part of that ecosystem of
Mhm.
contractors and day laborers and the construction industry that, as I mentioned, like benefits deeply from not just from cheaper labor, but from the labor that and the services that day laborers provide. And so Home Depot does have responsibility, and they've said things like they're not notified. Okay, you're not notified, but once, like you see that ICE agent, that Border Patrol agent, I don't even know what was on his
Look like
vest,
Border Patrol. Yeah.
right? Running around. Absolutely, a manager can come and say, "Who are you?
Right.
Identify yourself. Uh, you know, show me a court issue warrant. Who are you here to look for?" Absolutely. If I'm a customer, given what happened in El Paso, Texas at that Walmart, I would be terrified that there's someone just running around with weapons on them who
I didn't even
hasn't
think
properly
about that.
identified themselves,
You're
because
absolutely
we're
right.
seeing that. We're seeing people, and I'm forgetting what the word is right now because I'm just getting so upset thinking about it. Like, we're seeing people impersonate ICE
Yeah.
agents and federal agents. And, we've seen instances of people trying to kidnap women, uh, pretending to be ICE agents. And so, as a customer, like I would be terrified to be in that store. And so they do have a responsibility, whether or not they want to say that they do. And if they're not going to do anything about it, then we have to act. We have to be the ones to say we're not going to step foot in a Home Depot. We're going to go support our local hardware store,
Hmm. Hmm.
Ace Hardware, where like
Yeah.
the money stays within the community because it's
Yeah.
franchised, which is something that somebody commented on my Instagram post. And we have power. Like we can take our dollars and spend them elsewhere.
And that's where we've been shopping. I mean, Ace Hardware, our kids say that's mommy's favorite store. There's so many cute little knickknacks in there. And you're right, the money does stay local. It's franchised. This is locally owned. There's these small business owners. It's got this big, brand name, but it's mostly small business owners who's franchised. Do you see this as family separation 2.0?
Oh, this is like family separation 5.0. Like unfortunately, like we are seeing just like a repeat of this. And I have to say, recently, so many of the videos and reports that I've seen are starting to more and more involve children, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's like that 1 year old toddler that was in the car when federal agents drove off this person's car, whether it's the toddler who was getting ripped out of his father's arms while he was in the middle of having a seizure, or like another kid whose mom was detained accidentally, deported accidentally, and the 2-year-old was just left in the house. All the way from like kids to like pets, who are like just being left behind and for weeks left alone in people's homes. Um, it's the cruelty, and we're seeing more kids be detained. We're seeing, 15-year-olds getting pulled over, and many of them are U.S. citizens. Not that that should matter, but like, it does, because you're seeing
Yeah.
how indiscriminately this is being done. And
I mean, I get what you're saying. People are people, but it does matter. These are American citizens, and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is lying to the American public when
She's
she
lying
says
when she says
American
that this is not
citizens are
happening.
not. It is, and every
You know
single
what
day.
she means? She means white people. She means white people are not being detained because that is what in her mind and in many of these people's mind a US citizen looks like. They don't look like me and you,
Mm.
right? In their mind, the only people who are
And we're just as
legal,
American as they are, Julissa.
100%, right? And it's like, in their mind, uh the only people who are truly American, whose Americanness is never questioned, are white people. All the rest of us have to prove that we really are from here. And even when we have our passport, when we have our papers on us, they still will then question the validity of those papers because it's
Right?
not and never has been about paperwork.
Or they throw them on the ground, like in the video that we saw out of Raleigh, which
Yeah.
is just so infuriating. And the more and more I watch that video, the more infuriated I get. Because in any other country, that headline would be Secret Police Target Ethnic Minorities. We have no idea who these people are in most cases. Their faces are covered, they're not identifying themselves. That's what pisses us off here. It's not that the fact that they're on the streets, it's the fact that they're on the streets without warrants and masked up and they're not identifying themselves, and just even if they do have warrants, they're refusing to show them. For what?
Yeah.
Just to be difficult. What I'm so proud of is the fact that I see so many women stepping up. Like, women are in these videos more than anyone, whether it's the mom in Lululemon who's stepping up asking for the
Yeah.
ID of the federal agent in Orange County, or whether it's the moms on the streets of Chicago or in Charlotte. I mean, speak on that, or you, Julissa, I mean, like, what is it about women speaking up and being they're saving us right now? And when you see these videos, it's women that are front and center in the middle of these conflicts.
Yeah. I think that for so many of us, like, and now I'm speaking not as like any other thing, other than just like as a mom,
Yeah.
as a mom, when I see these things, I feel like it's my responsibility to do anything I can because these children don't deserve this. Kids do not. No kid deserves to be treated like that. No kid deserves to have their family ripped apart, taken away. And I think that women, as women, we know how to organize because a lot of us are the organizers of our families,
Right.
like we're the ones that keep things in order at home. And
I
so,
know my wife is here.
yeah, and so I think like it's like just like a role that like we know how to have, like, we know how to step up to authority. We know how to say like, hey, this is not right. And I gotta like shout out all the little white ladies that are like out there like putting their bodies on the line. Like, thank you. That is what allyship looks like, like to know that like you as a white woman um has some protection. And you know what, like, even as I say this, I'm like, the video in my head is coming up of this like white woman who was like shoved to the ground by ICE agents when she was like recording them, so like that's how far this has gone. Like, nobody has protections, but I do really appreciate um the people, white or not, who like are stepping up and standing up for their communities. I mean, when you see 30,000 kids in Charlotte going out to protest, I'm like, thank you. Yes, that's what's going to keep us safe. That is what's going to turn things around.
Where's the hope in this for you? Where is the hope that this will turn? Is it the belief in this democracy in this country that power will change hands? Is it those videos where you see the allyship? Where is the hope for you, Julissa?
I have such little hope in politicians at this present moment. Because I mean, you saw what happened with the shutdown and like those Democrats or senators who are Democrats who like voted to end the shutdown. Um, I have I have such little hope in um, the not the speaker, but the minority leader in the House. I have such a little hope in politicians and whatever democracy, semblance of democracy that we had in this country, it's quickly eroding. And so my hope, it's in the people. I very deeply believe que el pueblo, solamente el pueblo salva el pueblo, right? Only the people
Nosotros
save the
también.
people. That's
Nosotros
it. Like it's
también.
us. It's us. Like it's the kids who are protesting in Charlotte. It's the moms that are out there with signs everywhere. It's the moms that are, creating like literally lines, forming lines with their bodies when kids are coming home from school, or saying, hey, I'm going to take your kid to school today so that you don't have to be worried about immigration stopping you. And it sucks that like those are the things that we have to do, but I'm just so hopeful in the people. Um and I do think elections are important, and I do think that it's going to matter. The midterms are going to matter, but only if we then hold those politicians to account.
You're absolutely right.
Because unfortunately, so many of them forget who put them in office, and they forget who it is that they work for.
And I don't know what they're thinking when they cast their ballots either. All of these individuals are working on reelection, and they are all vulnerable in 2026. I know some of them have been singled out, but the way things are moving right now, people are getting active in politics, and they're realizing, I think, and anecdotally, that if they get involved, civically involved, if they step up, that there's a chance to make this world a better place. And it is el pueblo. Solo el pueblo salva el pueblo. I think people are really seeing that and stepping into it, Julissa.
Yeah, and also, it is people that are saying like, you know, um, we're not going to like we're not just going to stand back and let Democrats also just like grandfathered people into office. I don't know if this is true or not, but like I see the rumors of Mayra Macias like in Chicago, running for Chuy's seat, because
Mhm.
he's sort of like, my chief of staff is going to be the next person to hold my office. And I'm glad to see that. Like, I'm glad to see this like really strong Latina who's shown up for her community in Chicago. Like, she's been in all of the ICE raids, like recording, bearing witness. And she's been so politically involved in the past also, that I'm just like, yes, people like that need to be like, I'm going to be the difference maker. I'm going to be doing this for the right reasons, and more concerned and worried about their community than about their election, and
Yes.
more concerned about their community than they are about, keeping their corporate donors.
We need people with that servant's mindset. We need people that look at this as an act of service first. And we certainly do. And we're using our platform that we created as an act of service to go out there and create a record in the short term, so that when power does change hands, these individuals are held accountable. I'm very firm in my morality. Anyone can try to, trash what we're doing as maybe not journalistic or one trick pony. I've heard those things directed at me, but I am so firm in where I stand right now morally. I'm so firm in why I'm doing this and this higher purpose driven mission, that I don't care what others are saying. And that's a lot for me, Julissa, because I'm a people pleaser. Like,
You
I
know
want
who
everybody.
is a one-trick pony? Fox News. Who's a one-trick pony? Literally Trump, who's like immigrants, immigrants. Like, if we're talking about immigrants as much as we're talking about immigrants and the abuses that are happening of those immigrants, is because that is the news right now, right? Like, that is what they are talking about, right?
Right.
And so you know what, like, people can say whatever they want to say. That's not why I'm here. Like, that's not why you're here. Like, we're not here for those people in the first place. And um it's important for us to be megaphones for our
Yes.
communities, and be megaphones for everything that is happening, and to report the unreported news.
I, for years, have followed your story. And even before we knew each other, I knew who you were. And so it is so special for me to be here
Thank
with
you.
you and have this conversation with you. I really mean it. Like, you're somebody who my daughter can look up to. You're somebody who is really such an example of a strong woman. And The future's female. We have that shirt. We have that shirt
Yeah.
for my daughter. Right? You're in the present right now,
I love
and you're
that.
doing everything you can. I finish every interview by asking if there's anything I haven't asked that's important to know, or anything that you'd like to talk about, Julissa. You've been such a lovely guest.
Thank you. There's one thing that's been sort of circling in my mind, and I haven't quite sort of fleshed out this thinking. And I'm already like walking myself back. I'm like, don't say it yet, don't say it yet, because you haven't fleshed it out. But I do think that something that really has been on my mind a lot, and I'm trying to kind of connect all of the dots, is it's that I very much believe that what we as a country have allowed to happen to Black children at the hands of police, what we as a world have allowed to happen to the children of Gaza at the hands of the Israeli government, very much sets the stage for what we are seeing happen to immigrant kids at the hands of DHS officials.
Mm.
And the way that this is going, I would not be surprised to see more and more kids be the targets of uh, ICE enforcement, not just the bystanders who get caught in it, but literally the targets of it, um, because that's what we have allowed in this world. We have allowed children to be the ones to pay the price, and I hope I'm wrong. Um, I really hope I'm wrong, but I see the I see the what do they call the little crumbles
Yeah, the
on
breadcrumbs.
I see the breadcrumbs on the road, and I hope that I'm wrong. But all that to also say, like, we cannot forget about all those other things that are happening, because they're still happening. I know we don't talk much about police brutality and police violence anymore because we're talking about other things, but like those things are still important and they're still happening. What's happening to children in Gaza is still happening, even if we're not every day seeing a video about it. And all of these things are connected.
And you know what? You emphasized a point that we really feel strongly about here. Protecting the vulnerable starts with children. Protecting the vulnerable starts with the most vulnerable, and that is children. And it's probably why, to go back to something you said earlier in the conversation, why we're seeing so many moms out there is
Yeah.
because moms, you want to protect your children. That's just some sort of innate thing that happens with
Yeah.
parenthood, I think. Julissa Arce, author, writer, activist, all around badass. I'm so grateful to have spent this
Thank
time with
you.
you. Thank you so much for joining Nick Valencia Live, and we hope you come
Thank you
back.
so much. Yes, anytime. Thank you
All
so
right,
much
you
for
got
having
it.
me.
Julissa Arce, that was her right there. Gosh, she's so cool. I see her sometimes at LAFC games. I shouldn't say that too much because Atlanta United is my hometown team, but I go to a lot of LAFC games when I'm back home, and she's a big fan there, also of the Angel City team, so I get to see her pretty regularly, which is great. What a fun conversation there with Julissa Arce. I encourage you guys to go read her book. She's a best-selling author. She's got a book out. I think, Eric, do we have a graphic of that book? We could put it up here for people if they want to check it out. Oh, we don't have a graphic. Okay, we had something else. Anyway, we'll move on here. If you want to go check out Julissa Arce, she's available online and just an amazing person. We move on to our next guest, somebody whose podcast I was on just a couple of weeks ago, somebody who, has intersected with my life a lot over the last 10 years or so. Garret Boorojian is a podcast host, and he's formerly from the finance world. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time with Nick Valencia Live. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Nick. It's a pleasure being with you. I love your show. I follow it. And yes, it was so wonderful to have you as a guest on my podcast. And we talked so many topics that matter to the American people and to your viewers at home. So thank you so much again for taking the time to speak with me.
Yeah, so grateful. Let's start. You have a finance background, so I think one of the sort of relevant things to talk to you about is the economy. You heard Julissa Arce speak about just how desperate it is for some Americans out there spending upwards of $500, $600, upwards of $1,000 a month on groceries. What do you see the economy, the state of the economy right now?
Well, I'm very concerned, Nick, because we just got a delayed jobs report that came out from the month of September, and the unemployment rate is now up to 4.4%, and only 119,000 jobs were created in the month of September. And
Wow.
Where the unemployment rate was at today compared to last year is significantly higher, as well as inflation inflation is also significantly higher. So I'm concerned that people are not able to your point, afford their groceries, be able to make their rent payments, to be able to think about how they can put extra money going toward a college fund for their children as they grow older and aspire and dream about where they would like to attend a four-year university.
Yeah.
So I am very concerned to people I talk to, business owners, families, neighbors, all types of professionals. I just talked to one of my former classmates from UNC Chapel Hill, and he was our former student body vice president. He eventually married. It was his girlfriend at the time, but eventually married our student body president. And so he's talking about how they need to have 2 or 3 jobs just to get by, and how you have to be crafty and nimble. You have to really be versatile. Think about, how could I maximize my potential, my skill sets, my unique abilities to be able to think of multiple revenue streams to provide to my family when things are so chaotic at this time.
Gig workers, I really feel for them, and people who are really having to hodgepodge sort of jobs together in order to hit the money needed to keep food on the table. I wanted to talk to you about tariffs as well. That was a big part of the conversation earlier this year. President Trump announcing tariffs on countries that we've been doing business with. And now, recently from the Oval Office, he was alleging that he was going to send out a check of $2,000 to low-income or mid-income Americans. Do you buy that our tariffs have been working, and this system that Trump invested in is actually has merit?
No, I think it's a sham. I think it's ridiculous. I also think that if the Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court justices are currently reviewing Trump's global tariffs program, that it might be deemed unconstitutional, and it might be deemed in certain respects as illegal. And I believe that it was the unfortunate campaign promise that a lot of the MAGA base got sold on, that with tariffs that foreign countries would be paying the extra dollars, when in fact a tariff is a tax, and it falls on the American consumers. It falls on the people here at home, whether you're MAGA or not, or whether you're for the Trump administration or not. And we clearly see that in these desperate times of the economy being so fragile and so chaotic, that the tariff situation across the country is a farce. I mean, this is not the America First agenda that the Trump administration had promised the American people, and really people who didn't vote for President Trump in 2016, 2020, and now even in 2024 last year, when he got reelected. We've never believed in their economic policies, the president and his first administration, as well as the second administration, and that the tariff policies of his second term have been far more egregious and far more unconstitutional, and that there has not been any emergency situation where we have to run a global tariff program. President Reagan, who is a true conservative, for all the people at home who identify as conservative, President Reagan was not for tariffs. President Reagan recognized that, it may work for a very short time, very strategically, but for the long term, it runs interference with how you can be competitive in the world, how you can form alliances. We're hurting our NATO partners. We're hurting even our non-NATO allies. And so I am not confident in the tariff program. And I believe that that's why people are struggling, because they're not seeing where the economy is working for them, and they're not seeing how these tariffs are working for them. The Trump administration bailing out Argentina with $40 billion, a care package, if you will, that's not helping American farmers in California. That's not helping a lot of people across the country. There is no America First agenda under the Trump administration that he promised during the election cycle.
Garret, if the tariffs ended tomorrow, would that be a remedy, or have we just unraveled something that is going to be hard to put back?
Even if the tariff program were to end tomorrow, to your point, Nick, the question that you're directing to me, no, it would create a lagging effect where you would still see weeks, months, and maybe even years in the future, irreparable harm, irreparable damage. I
So
believe
scary.
that the relationships that we have fractured overseas in terms of the relationships of the Trump administration has fractured overseas, it's going to take a long time for that trust and that confidence in the American, in that American dream of people who are trying to fight and trying to, get by in this country, meaning that countries overseas see that our people are suffering and that the policies of this administration, although, half the country, or obviously a little bit more than what obviously the voters voted for Kamala, but, the Trump administration, because he's a duly elected president, more people voted for Trump, but they're starting to see that the people who they entrusted in this administration, the advisors around President Trump and President Trump himself, they see that other countries are not going to feel sorry for the American people at home because they put us all in one big group of people who, as Americans, that's who, as people, that's who we elected. So we were warned as Americans that this was going to happen. And, shame on us as a country that we put Trump back in, because other countries are not feeling sorry for us. They're seeing how they're just as affected, if not more so, by Trump's policies. And no, if the tariff program ended tomorrow, we would still be in dire situations because it would take so long to undo the damage that has been caused to our country because of the tariff program.
And what's so sobering is that you talk to Trump supporters. I talk to a lot of them, and they list his business acumen as one of the reasons why they voted for him. And they just say, just wait, it'll happen. What do you say to those people who say, hey, look, I voted for him because of his business background. I trusted him with the economy. It's going to happen. Believe him when he says he's doing the best for America.
Well, it's unfortunate because by no means am I selling the my fellow American short, right? In terms of, being an informed citizen, but that's what it's all about. Even going back and dating back to our founding fathers, they wanted us as American citizens to be informed citizenry. And there are a lot of people across the country who, although intelligent and who have the best of intentions and want to do the best for their families, and you don't have to agree ideologically, politically, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent. That's what's wonderful about America. In our democracy, you can freely express yourself and you can have your own opinions. And as long as your opinions are obviously within legal bounds, right, that you can think differently and you can believe differently and do what's best for you and your family. But I think what has happened, as we've seen in right-wing media, outlets, and the left obviously can stretch the truth here or there, so they're obviously not being absolved, but we see the vast majority of time in right-wing media where they're skewing the numbers and they are trying to put into context that, please be patient. J.D. Vance, our vice president, has been quoted saying, be patient if the economy is not working, right? But where was people giving grace to the Biden administration when President Biden was outspoken and said, listen, it's going to take a second term of a Biden administration, or even if Kamala Harris were to be elected last year, to carry on and continue the Biden policies. Now, with all that legislation that was passed in the 4 years of putting America first, and where Biden's legislation that he signed into law benefited red states more than blue states, now with everything that's happened in the Trump administration, these first 11 months and ongoing, has erased a lot of Biden's 4 years of progress. So really, this economy, Trump has to own this economy. He's done a lot.
But he isn't. He's taking the good parts of it and saying, this is because of me, and the bad parts, that's because of Biden. How much longer can you blame somebody who hasn't been in office for 11 months, somebody you don't even hear from anymore? Gas prices are out of control, $1,000 for groceries. Be patient, J.D. Vance says. He's a businessman, his supporters say.
Right, but you also have to understand, too, and you know very well, Nick, you understand this very well, that a lot of people just think, okay, Trump's a billionaire. He's from New York, the financial capital of the world. He's been in business for nearly 50 years. But if you peel back the layers, like an onion, if you peel them back, you really see the true colors right, of that onion. You really see if you want to dig deep and study that onion, and you see the imperfections, or you see the bits and pieces that you're not going to see on the surface, and you really dig deep and peel back that President Trump's resume, if you will. A lot
Peeling
of
back that onion makes me tear up, water my eyes, man. I'm crying here. It's like, God, this looks all terrible.
Right. Six bankruptcies, 34 felony counts. When you think about just how denying fair housing to African Americans dating back to 1970s, I mean, the list goes on and on. And I think also too, Nick, is that when you look at this government shutdown, and it's the longest government shutdown in American history, people see that, wow, the Democrats, although, Chuck Schumer and other Democrats, especially the 8, including the independent, who voted to end the government shutdown, you have to understand something, that we can't keep the government shut down forever. But what did that expose? That exposed that Republicans don't care about Obamacare subsidies. They don't care about the expiration of tax credits. They don't care that people will lose their health care or that it'll be unaffordable. And then we see MAGA even sees, wait a second, the Trump administration is fighting the courts to not fulfill or to not make sure that SNAP is fully funded, and that basically healthcare and food is being ripped away from the American people. That's the President of the United States and his administration. That's who's running this country. People who need their food and people who need affordable healthcare are being denied it. And that's what that government shutdown of ours, that's what that really exposed. And the Democrats never thought, in my opinion, that the Trump administration would stoop that low into not funding SNAP, which had nothing to do with the government. If the Trump administration wants to get a private wealthy individual to fund, the military, right? I believe it was $130 million that you have to or 130 billion with a B, you have to then, use your resource to make sure that SNAP is fully funded. And thank God the government shutdown is over.
Cruelty is the point with this administration. That is very evident from our perspective here. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so glad that we got to do this, and we spent some time together here. We have a podcast together that was out on November 18th, I believe. You want to go check that out? How can we watch your stuff, Garret? How can people keep up with you?
Yes, absolutely. So my podcast is called the Wave Capital's Guest Speaker Series on relationship building in a team environment. You can check it on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, and I would love for you to join me on my show. If you're interested to become a guest, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or my X account at Boorojian. And I would love to have you on. And as the former managing partner and chief development officer of Wave Capital Partners, if you have any questions, financially, happy to answer them or point you in the right direction to make sure your questions are answered. So thank you again, Nick, for having me on today. Really appreciate it.
Hey, God bless you. I had a smarter conversation because you were a part of it. I am so dumb when it comes to finances, man. My answer for money was always just make more of it. I don't know what I'm doing. But so far, I've been living 42 years, and it's been okay. So, hey, thank you so much for taking the time with Nick Valencia Live. We'll see you next time, Garret. Thank you. That was Garret Boorojian, a friend of the show, friend of mine. And I want to wrap up here by playing a report that you may have missed, something that we talked a lot about the most vulnerable here being singled out, children. Julissa talked about her anticipation that more children are going to be wrapped up in these wide nets that are being cast by immigration forces. And we were in Washington, D.C. recently at a Pew Research Center event, and it was during our trip that we met with the Women's Refugee Commission. They have a one-of-a-kind data pregnancy tracker because they allege that the government is breaking the law, ignoring their own policy directives, which we've reported out extensively on nickvalencianews.com if you want to go read an article. But for now, take a look at this report with the director of the Migrant Rights Program there at the Women's Refugee Commission.
To reception centers across Central America, and we have seen parents who are showing up in these reception centers inconsolable because they don't know where their children are. They were detained, They were deported, and they have no idea what has happened to their children.
What is evident to us at Nick Valencia News is that this is a different type of family separation. It's family separation 2.0.
I also call it family separation 2.0, and in many ways, I think it is so pernicious because it's so invisible, because it's happening in so many different ways in so many places in the country. But if you put it all together, it is just really, really devastating. We have policies in place that are meant to prevent this. They are not being enforced. They are not supposed to be detaining pregnant, postpartum, or lactating women. And we are just receiving significant reports that this is happening in really substantial numbers. Many ICE detention centers do not detain women, right? They're not set up to detain women. So if there is, for instance, a workplace riot or some kind of large immigration enforcement action near a center that doesn't detain women, a lot of times the men might be taken to the detention facility, but the women will be held in state or local jails or in CBP facilities if there are ones nearby that, again, are not set up for long-term detention. We've heard reports of women being held in CBP facilities where there aren't proper bathrooms or proper beds for weeks at a time. Even these women are transferred away from their children if they are postpartum or nursing. That is also by definition a family separation issue with a very young child. Administration has reissued the parental interest policy. There's a new version called the Detained Parents Directive that came out in early July, but even that contains requirements that you have to allow a parent to decide what happens to their children if they're going to be deported, and if they want to reunify, you have to give them that option. The really key thing is that these policies are not being enforced.
Is this government moving in good faith when it comes to their immigration policy?
I think we're just really seeing a lot of really terrifying violations of standards that have been in place and that were put in place for a reason. And I have to tell you, I'm just really terrified that we're in a situation where we're going to see a lot of lost kids again. I think this is an issue that we can all agree on, that we can all say is just wrong, and that there is policy on the books that says we are not supposed to be doing this because we as a country recognize that this is wrong. That families belong together, that parents need to be with their children, and that we have an obligation to ensure that everything that we do as a country enables that.
Every human being has the right to live in peace and have a dignified life. Every child has the right to be nurtured. We're not seeing that happen right now. We're seeing these vulnerable segments of our communities being deliberately targeted. Older day laborers who can't outrun these ICE agents are being caught up in the sweeps. Women, pregnant women, some of them being separated from their children just days after giving birth. These women are showing up in Central America with these stories of not knowing where their children are. I covered family separation 1.0. There are still families that have never seen their children again, that have no idea where they're at. Personally, I helped reunite some of those families. It's something that I don't talk about often, but we went through great lengths to try to do that, to make sure that families stayed together, because families belong together. I pray every day. I believe in this country. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in families. I believe children should be nurtured, man. And it's really devastating to me and so infuriating to me that people go on this mission in the name of Christ, go on this mission in the name of law and order, go on this mission and claim moral superiority, like they have something to stand on. Nobody is perfect. Nobody is perfect but God. That's what I believe. And we are seeing people out there who are acting like God. People who are out there who are singling out segments of our community because they simply don't like the color of their skin. But we also see something that gives us hope here, is that the only thing that is greater than fear is hope. Fear wants us to isolate. Hope wants us to stick together as community. And we're seeing just that. People coming together and standing up in the face of adversity and using their voice, whether they're part of this Latino community being persecuted or not. And that gives us here hope to keep moving forward deliberately and in good faith, and using our platform to highlight these stories of injustice. Thank you again so much for taking your time out of your day to be here with us and to support us and to show us that you believe in what we're doing, because we believe in it too. And every day we come on here prepared and ready to have a conversation with the people that are inextricably linked and at the center of this situation. So you are more educated and empowered to move forward throughout your day. So thank you so much again for helping truth go viral here. Go make truth go viral. And as always, guys, try to do this, man. Got to listen to my own advice sometimes. Have a great day on purpose.